Hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are and watching. Welcome to Beyond Borders. This is a talk we're bringing to you from Red Hat and eXate about the future of digital data sovereignty. My name is Keith Lynch. I'm the VP of our enterprise segment in EMEA, and I have with me Sonal. Sonal, hand over to you for a bit of an intro.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me. It's Sonal. I'm one of the co-founders and the CTO for eXate. So my background is doing lots of software engineering, and off the back of that, I've been lucky to have a great career working for several banks, supporting them on different initiatives from either RegTech or from running CTO functions for digital transformation. So thanks for having me, and it's great to be here.
Excellent. So if we move on to the first slide, I think you'll be kicking us off, Sonal, right? Just talking about what we're going to be bringing people through, which is effectively Red Hat and eXate's partnership and collaboration around what we're bringing to customers together, and bringing the best of what Red Hat brings from a platform perspective and everything we have to do around data center and hybrid cloud, and then from a data perspective, really. What eXate are bringing.
Yes, and I'll be moving straight into some of the key challenges that I had in my corporate career. One of the key challenges that I had when I was doing digital transformation was the desperate desire to try and have a single system that I could run in one location and be able to service many different countries. In today's digital sovereignty world, of all the things that are coming out, from trade wars to tariffs and all the fun stuff that goes with it, we're actually seriously at risk of breaking these global systems back into silos, where we could be potentially looking at alternative ways to be able to do smarter things with data sovereignty, to be able to actually help maintain some of that global operating model that we've been striving to as we've been moving to the cloud and getting more digital. So just to explain what I mean in terms of a global operating model, I wanted one system that could seamlessly operate for multiple jurisdictions. So operationally, I could look after it once, didn't have to incur too many different licensing fees, all of those things, which exponentially was rising, but making my cost rise. So I did want to have a single instance that I could manage, have single teams to manage, and then have like good, smart ways to be able to deal with those. But if we look at what's actually happening in this space, and I mentioned like tariffs, etc., but we know most of the world have now got some data protection regulations in place. We're seeing a huge shift in terms of AI regulation that's coming into place. We're seeing lots and lots of different data protection requirements and how we can actually deal with our customers' data. But yeah, as I mentioned, like with that is now coming a requirement to have systems within different countries and having that sovereignty aspect in there. So the current options that we're looking at, and again, this is quite a topical conversation between, I guess, analysts and different consultancies that we've been speaking to as well, where it is going to be, let's break it down into silos, which again is an option, and we may actually just have to do that. And it is a part of the reality of what we're seeing today. Or we can actually try to still go with a hybrid approach. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to partner with Red Hat, is some of the great tech that's been brought together from the open source community to deal with some of these challenges. And being able to have like a hybrid cluster and being able to operate seamlessly over multiple clouds definitely was giving us those options in how we're actually going to do that. But whereas Red Hat is exceptional at the infrastructure side and technical and networking, and they're really experts in that, we've come together with our technology to bring some of the expertise that we brought along from a data sovereignty standpoint. So instead of listening to me, I'll hand it over to Keith to talk some about what the industry's saying about it.
So thanks, Sonal. So the industry definition of digital sovereignty, if you speak to like IDC, Gartner, Accenture, and Deloitte, it's generally in these three areas. So you have data sovereignty, operational sovereignty, and technological sovereignty. Each one of these areas, I think, if you take each one there's you have to have all three to have kind of a sovereign solution. So control over your data, where data is, what policies you have around your data, where it can be, and operational sovereignty really comes down to, you know, can you have all the people you need and the things you need in the place where you need to have them. And customers really want to think about having full control in the legal jurisdiction where they are, where there might be regulations around some of these things. And then technological sovereignty is really around the technology stack that underpins your solution, both the technology that you might be building yourself, but also the supply of technology that you're getting from all of your suppliers and vendors or partners who are helping you to put a solution together. So I think Red Hat are really good in the kind of operational and technological sovereignty, and I'll get into a little bit of that later. But Sonal, do you want to bring us through like data sovereignty? Because I think this is probably one of the main areas where, you know, eXate would be very compelling for our joint customers.
Yep, that's what we're here for, to give a little bit more information about all of the great work that Red Hat's done, but how can we complement what's already there to start giving us the ability to be able to, again, support that global operating model. Just to sort of level set the language around what we're discussing. But there are multiple things that are in play here. So, and as a solution, we sit at the intersection of four things. One is data classification. So as eXate, that's one of our strong suits in being able to look and find information and see what type of, if it's like personally identifiable information, if it's sensitive, if it's medical, pick your favorite type of item that we want to protect. We are a aggregator of multiple privacy enhancing techniques. We have our data sovereignty offering, which is a distributed data protection engine. This is how we're leveraging off this virtual application network that Red Hat also have to be able to run our technology seamlessly in multiple jurisdictions, but it behaves like it's one. And we've got fine-grained access control. So just making sure that we're not, we're actually adhering to some of these rules. So if we look at data sovereignty, we are looking at three main things. One is that data residency side of it. So when we talk about residency, it's usually a organizational decision on where data can be actually stored. So under GDPR, you can store it in Europe, but you can share it with other countries within Europe. And that's completely fine. And that's like all encompassed in that data residency world, where we're able to control where data is coming and going from. Data localization is a little bit different, where we actually have to have the data stored within a jurisdiction. There are some slight differences in how people are defining it. For all intents and purposes, when we're talking about it for today, this is what we mean, that data must be stored and held within jurisdiction. So there's about 40 countries that have these data localization requirements, such as India for payments, or China is a good one to actually, from that standpoint as well. And then we've got data sovereignty, which is a combination of two. So you can store the data somewhere, but it must have the home country's rules and sovereignty applied to it. So one of the interesting things that has come from this is the US Cloud Act. You'd think cloud, you're just thinking of the hyperscalers. It's an acronym for how data is accessed and used across for American tech companies. Some of the fun things that have come out from that has been who actually has access to data when it's stored on, say, cloud providers' infrastructure. So this has been a bit of it's been quite a contentious thing at the moment, which is driving a lot of this. I think what data sovereignty and digital sovereignty has become one of the top 5 trends according to Gartner. This is why it's such a topical thing and a board level issue, is who actually in the cloud era is ultimately the decision maker on data. And what our technology is looking to do is to give that ownership back to the organizations, irrespective of where that data is being stored. So not keeping it, so with Azure, AWS, and some of our other partners in this space, but giving that sovereignty back to the organization. And that's the whole premise of what this collaboration is about. So sovereign use case, sovereign cloud, that's you, Keith.
Thanks, Sonal. And I think this kind of a busy slide with use cases, but these are kind of the use cases that at Red Hat we're hearing from customers. And you kind of touched on what we would call confidential computing, and that's definitely one of them. But that would come under kind of control, really. And if you take these 9 use cases, they really come into 3 areas. It's if you look at the left, it's kind of, that's all about control. It's about maintaining control over your IT operations, making sure that the support being provided to you is kind of within your own borders and within your own legal jurisdiction, and using in-country and geo infrastructure that you can touch and feel and go to, and again, it's in your own legal jurisdiction. The kind of middle one is about regulation and compliance, and this is about meeting kind of local security laws and governance, and then the third is really around security, and these are like I would say 3 of the core pillars within functional views that customers have on requirements of what they're using in terms of use cases for sovereign cloud. So now if you bring us to the next slide, Red Hat's strategy around sovereign cloud hasn't really changed much over the years. So as we think about how our customers are thinking about sovereign cloud, we think about the ways in which Red Hat can provide value and what the main pillars are. Now, this is a bit of a busy slide. There's a lot of core pillars here, from open source, hybrid cloud, data, security, trust, ecosystem, innovation, and local operations. And a lot of that is, it's underpinned by other things here. But if I take 3 core kind of pillars here from what we see as massively valuable to our customers and partners, I think for us, open source is absolutely key. It's foundational to what we do at Red Hat. It's foundational to who we are, and really that allows you to have tech. If we think about the 3 key areas of sovereignty, that gives you that technical sovereignty. Ultimately, we don't have a license over or as Red Hat, because there's no license. There's an open source license. You're not beholden to Red Hat. We can't tell you to turn it off. We don't have ownership over the technology itself. Effectively, all of the technology that's in our products is all open source. And as a result, nobody owns it, which means you have complete control as a customer or partner over that technology. Now, whether you choose to, engage with Red Hat as commercially for support on that stack, that's entirely up to you. But you can walk away from us and we can't tell you to turn that off. So that's a key thing that, as Red Hat, as a vendor, we think is very valuable for our customers. So that's kind of point number 1, I would say, which is really important. The second has been something that we've been speaking about as Red Hat for over a decade, and it's really our hybrid cloud story. So this is, for us, it's providing customers the ability to write an application once and build and manage it pretty much anywhere of their choosing, whether that be on premise, on physical kit that they own themselves. It could be in a colo, in like an Equinix or some other co-located data center where you're renting, locally in your own legal jurisdiction, or it could be in the cloud from one of the cloud providers or from another managed service provider. But the ability to just build an app once and being able to deploy it anywhere seamlessly with minimal effort is really key. And I think as we think about our value prop on sovereignty, that ability to take your workloads and not have to retest them, rebuild them, refactor them just because you need to move or are thinking about moving to another cloud, or just thinking about having a fallback option should something go wrong, or you're thinking about complying with regulations like DORA. The third for me, which is probably the next biggest, the most important, would be ecosystem. Red Hat has for a very long time had a really rich ecosystem, and like eXate on this call as a software vendor like ourselves, we have a rich ecosystem of ISVs who build solutions on Red Hat stacks. We also have partners who have local services operations in all of the countries where we are and beyond, in fact. So, being able to go to, a partner in your country who has people in that country who can provide services around a Red Hat and eXate stack in your country is, we think, important for you as you kind of navigate through these kind of sovereign concerns. So that that would address kind of operational sovereignty and the ability to have your services deployed and managed by people in your country for you. And also our cloud providers are key to that kind of, partner support. So we know most of the cloud providers have solutions that are, built normally in partnership with other vendors in country, normally some of their ecosystem. If you look at Sens in France, or Bleu, which is a cloud platform that's been built by Microsoft in France as well. These would be examples of cloud providers that we're working with as well. So I think from our perspective, I would say those three things are probably the most important. It's not to say the other things on this slide aren't, but they would be three of the core areas for me when I talk to customers that they think about, the kind of value Red Hat brings to this. So now maybe if you want to go to the next slide and talk people through, I know you kind of talk about the use case from what eXate are doing and some of the things that you're able to help our joint customers with.
Yeah. So again, like just from the previous slide where you mentioned around the data residency, and when we talk about these things, we're starting to look at it to say, how do we get smarter in how we operationalize those types of things and being able to use some like other technologies to be able to do that. And that's where, again, something that we're helping from an operational standpoint is to manage that data residency piece where if we've got infrastructure in different countries to support some of those residency requirements, and they are going to be there, localization requirements, they are going to be there, then how do we manage that and how do we still behave like it's a seamless application? And that's some of the things that what the collaboration has been. So what we actually wanted to do as our collaboration was to create that hybrid multi-cloud, that unified data sovereignty and digital sovereignty over data, infrastructure, and operations. Our goal was to be able to allow organizations to operate globally and comply locally and do it in a really, really easy way rather than how everyone is getting overwhelmed by this at the moment, and in terms of how they're going to actually manage this with all the other things that are coming in their direction. So what this can actually help with is like being able to still comply and do all of the things that we're being asked to, but how do we actually operationalize that? How do we actually help our customers through that journey? Because it's coming and it's coming fast for everyone. So not to get too technical about it, because I know I'll probably put Keith into a coma if I keep talking about. I'm very excited about. We have got a technical webinar on this, but essentially we are able to determine in real time what country something needs to run in, and that's just intercepting, understanding the data, understanding the context of the data, what type of data it is, and then knowing that we have to run it in a different jurisdiction. This is what I left my corporate career for. It's probably one of the biggest achievements of my career, where we've actually created software and tied it into hardware and actually able to create this hybrid cloud where we're able to determine where does something need to run because it's got a data localization requirement on it. Or from a residency standpoint, only 3 of these centers are available to us, and make sure we're not accidentally sending it to the wrong data center. This, to manage that, is to do it individually, application by application, can be done, but is it efficient use of everyone's time? Is that their core business that they want to do? So this is a really compelling way that we are able to actually bring our 2 technologies together to actually help operationalize what actually is going to have to be done from a silo perspective, but it will feel like it's still one. If we're achieving that, we're still winning with our customers. And that's really what the dream was, to operate globally, but comply locally and try and do it both. And that's really the message of today, was that how do we actually do that? In terms of looking at a use case, which is something that we're working with a few of the other ecosystem partners in this space, is it's a bit of a busy slide, and it's a bit like techie with boxes and arrows. But essentially what we're showing is, with a virtual application network, be it a different country, be it a different organization, we can use the same technology to create a hybrid sovereign application. So this is just an application that we've created to be able to protect individual organizations' credit card numbers, and being able to do that as a service. So other parties that you're sharing it with could still deal with usable data in the credit card number's place, but at the same time don't necessarily need access to it, or they don't need to store it in their underlying systems to make them have to be PCI compliant. It's a really nice use case, and it was a really straightforward one for us to actually pull together once we built the technology. Something like this would take years to build if we were trying to do this, but this we're able to get up and running within hours. It's just to show that we can actually do something really smart and have an extendable system that we can add organization N on here, or country N on here, or create a whole ecosystem of different infrastructure, and it still feels like it's one. We deploy, it gets pushed to everything. It's a really lovely way to be able to deal with some of these complexities that every organization is about to face that operates in a global market. Just as a bit of a teaser that where we're going with this is, again, our customers are talking a lot about agents and being able to build their own ecosystem in this space. From the work that we've been doing and having those controls around sovereignty, around data access, residency rules, we're able to extend that to actually do that communication between agents as well. Having that in that secure environment that Red Hat's putting together right now, and then being able to add these controls on top of it is, again, something that's going to, it's coming. The guardrails need to be there. There's many frameworks that are coming around AI governance, how this is actually going to work. Watch this space. Something's coming from us lot here again. So over to you, Keith.
Thanks, Sonal. So yeah, I was with a bank earlier this week, and just as you're talking about how you guys created this solution very quickly, the customer of ours, it took them about 9 months to do what they normally would have done in 2 to 3 years. So speed and time to market and getting solutions out there quickly is really important. And I like this kind of agentic use case when I meet with customers these days and they're speaking about AI. This is probably the key area where customers are getting the most value out of AI, when they're using agentic workflows to optimize existing kind of manual processes or semi-automated processes, and effectively freeing up people to give more and do more for them and do more in their own jobs. So it's great to see this as well. So I think that pretty much wraps us up. Sonal, thank you very much. I don't know if you have anything you wanted to say yourself.
So no, thanks for, again, giving me the time to explain what the work that we've done together. Again, like I said, it's a career high for me that we've actually achieved this together. So again, thanks for the time.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good to see. Yeah, I think if people are interested, there is more information to take a look at. So we have a solution brief and technical webinar as well. You'll find links below. So Sonal and everybody who came and listened, thank you very much.